Hi there, today I'm going to take you through my business ethics interview. So some of the past education for Mr. Treese, who is the CFO that I went to interview today and tour the Star Products company. He originally went to a community college back in California where he grew up, and then he majored in business and accounting at Viola University. And then he got a computer science minor as well. So he already had some interest in math growing up, which led him to being a co-financial officer. The interesting points throughout this interview to me was that the customers that don't have the same values typically aren't worked with. So I asked him in our interview who they try to work with as a company and who they avoid ethically. And he said companies that typically are purple customers, which mean their brand is kind of a purpley color, so they associate that with their company. And if these customers align with their purple value statement, then typically those are the ones that they work with and create projects for. And if they aren't aligned with their purple value statements, then typically it's not a good fit for them, and they don't normally want to work with these customers. And he said they're also not okay with customers using their employees. So he said there was some circumstance where one customer was abusing their employees as far as their work hours and timing and utilizing their resources way too often. So this is something that he said they have to watch and be careful of when they work with certain customers. The next question I asked him was if there's ethical concerns in the industry that they have to work with and try to avoid. And he said one thing is pricing integrity, and that some customers are typically used to working with other industries that don't typically share their pricing very honestly. So he said they have very detailed pricing documents that go through each individual process and every step of the way pricing. So that way they're not hiding any fees or lowballing customers just to get the bids, as he says oftentimes some of the other competitors will do. So they will actually lower their prices up front to get the bidding contract war won, and then they will throw on little fees here and there after they won the contract, and it'll total sometimes up to $50,000 or $100,000. And them as a company, Mr. Treese was telling me that they don't believe in that, and they want to be more upfront and honest about their pricing to customers. Another thing I asked them was how do they, as executives, set examples for the not the customers, but rather their employees. And he said that they have individual leadership teams amongst their marketing, product designers, and some of the sales representatives that work at the Star facility. And they each have their individual teams that have individual representatives within themselves that will meet with him, the CEO, and some of the other executives to go over how they want to continue as a company and what ideas they may have to further their reach into their industry, and what can the executives do for them to help them have a better environment to work in. And then he also talks about having an open discussion amongst all the leaders and then the executives, and also they try to hold the deadlines the much they can, because if they have marketing teams that are switching things up 2 days before a deadline is submitted, then it has to go through a huge process in order to get refixed and actually recreated. So he said deadlines are one thing that they try to hold as executives as an example to the rest of their group. And another thing I asked was, how do we avoid, as students, going into cultures that are ethically unsound? And he said to look at leadership, obviously, is a big outlier to look for. If the leaders if they appear hopefully at least somewhat ethical and that they're doing the right thing, then that's a good company to be in for ourselves. And he said also something that we need to understand as students is to leave companies nicely and respectfully. So even if a company isn't treating us well, he said 2 weeks is standard, but he said you should give at least a month of notice in order to leave your company on a respectful term. And then he said have the courage to speak up against issues that are going on in the company and speak up to leadership, so that way maybe you can propose ideas that they haven't thought of themselves. And that's the end. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks, Professor.